Hey, what's up, guys? So we are continuing our walk through Matthew. We're in Matthew chapter 5, starting in verse 17 this time. And this is one of those passages that I know some people get confused on it. I know it confused me for a little bit. It was kind of a stumbling block, because we don't do the law, like the Old Testament stuff anymore. But here Christ is saying he's not abolishing it. So it takes a second to kind of wrap your head around it, or it did for me, and I know some other people that that did too. But this is one thing that I would encourage you guys whenever you read your Bible. Make sure that you take it in context. Don't just take a passage from the Bible and read it and dwell on it and come up with your own interpretation because you don't understand where it's at and what the context for when they're speaking is. Because there's so much that feeds into why what is said is being said. And there's a huge lesson that comes from that. Anyways, it just helps clear up a whole lot of stuff when you know what you're talking about when you're talking about it. And in this, right, this is in the Sermon on the Mount. This is like kind of the third section of it. And when it opened up, right, when he first started talking, this crowd was following Jesus. And he goes up on this mountain and he sits down, and the disciples are there and whoever followed them up, and he begins to speak and he begins to teach to them. And he's telling them that the kingdom of heaven is for these people that they really wouldn't have expected it to be for. Like, the people that he talked about weren't your typical, like, blessed people. They weren't highly esteemed in society. They weren't the people that you would really look to and expect to inherit the kingdom of heaven. But that's exactly why Christ calls them. They're not attached to this world. There's so much that comes from coming and giving yourself fully to God, and there's so much in this world that can hold you back from that. And he says, these are the people that are blessed because they are mine. They are drawn to me. They come to me. They know my voice, right? And so when he's saying this is who comes, this is who is called, this is who the kingdom is for, and this is what that kind of citizen of heaven looks like, then it's almost like people said, okay, well, if that's the kind of person, then how are we supposed to live? He says, well, you're supposed to be the salt and the light of the world. You're supposed to be consistent. This is a habitual thing. You establish these habits of a godly lifestyle, of living in the way that is God-fearing, that leads to life, and you make the world around you better, right? And you do that for everybody around you, just as light shines. And so after that, people would say, okay, hold up. You got this new definition of people that are inheriting the kingdom of heaven. You're telling us this way of living that is strange because we separated ourselves and we kind of stayed in our own little holy sect over here. Is this something that's new? Like, are you telling us to reject the law of Moses? Are you telling us to reject the Torah and the things that we've heard and the things that we've learned? And the Pharisees would have loved that, right? Because they would have loved for Jesus to say, hey, I'm giving you guys something totally brand new. Because then they would have said, it's blasphemy, you're a false prophet, and kicked him out, right? But he says, no. You guys don't get it. Like, you really don't get it. I'm here to fulfill the law. He says, starting in verse 17, do not think that I came to destroy the law or the prophets. I did not come to destroy, but to fulfill. For assuredly I say to you, till heaven and earth pass away, one jot or one tittle will by no means pass from the law until all is fulfilled. Whoever therefore breaks one of the least of these commandments and teaches men to do so, they shall be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever does and teaches them, he shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I say to you that unless your righteousness exceeds the righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees, you will by no means enter the kingdom of heaven. And this is one, he's establishing like the importance of the law, right? He's saying the law is super important, guys. We're not getting away from that. You just don't know what it actually looks like to live out the law the way it was designed to be lived, right? Like, you can do the right thing, or you can do what you're supposed to do and not have a good attitude about it. You can do it because you feel like you're supposed to do it and not because you want to do it, right? Or you can do it because you want to be seen, not because you love doing the things that you're supposed to do. And that's what he's getting at. Is he's saying, guys, nothing is going to be torn away. Nothing at all. I'm going to reveal to you the way that you're supposed to live. I'm going to show you what life and what following the commandments really is. And he goes on to explain, like, murder begins in the heart. I'm not going to read all of these next sections, but basically what he's getting at in this is that it starts inside of you. He says, if you, the part about murder, he says, you've heard that it was said to those of old, you shall not murder, and whoever murders will be in danger of judgment. But I say to you that whoever is angry with his brother without cause shall be in danger of the judgment. And whoever says to his brother, Raca, shall be in danger of the council. But whoever says, you fool, shall be in danger of hellfire. Therefore, if you bring your gift to the altar and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift and leave it there before the altar and go your way. First be reconciled with your brother and then come and offer your gift. Right? And he's saying, guys, if there's something in you that is against somebody that's around you, you need to get that fixed before you come and try to connect with God. Because you've got a blockage. You've got something that's going to keep you from worshiping in the way that God's supposed to be worshipped. There's something in you that's not pure, and you need to really give, right? And give yourself to God and give yourself to the people that are around you in a way that is comforting, right? In a way that is unifying, in a way that brings about peacemaking, right? That brings about reconciliation. Because that's your calling. That's what it means. That's where it starts. If you're going to murder somebody, you don't just accidentally like slip up and kill somebody. It starts because in your mind you're thinking about it and you got something against them. And you see that they're bad, right? You judge them as a fool or as something bad, something mean. And then you want them to pay. You may not want to kill them, right? But it may start because you want to see something bad happen to them, or you want them to hurt, or you want something bad to just come against them. And if that goes on long enough, then it can turn into you want them dead, and then it can turn into you killing them. And he's saying, no. We're going to cut that off from the beginning. We're going to cut it off right here at the start. And you don't need to keep those things in your mind. You need to be focused on God. See, don't hate somebody, but not kill them. Right? That's not following the law. That's not killing them because because you're not supposed to, not because you actually love your neighbor. And that's why he says, unless your righteousness exceeds the righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees, you will by no means enter the kingdom of heaven. Like, you got to not only do it, right? Do it like they did it. Do it because you're supposed to do it. But you've got to exceed that. You've got to do it because you want to do it. You've got to do it because you love your neighbor. You've got to do it because you want to see them better, right? Even if they've come against you, right? If you're coming to God and you remember they've got something against you, go drop your gift and go talk to them. And go make up, because there's this unity that we're supposed to have as a people, proper unity, right? When we fell from the garden, we let that into all that sin and all that evil nature into our lives, right? Because we ate of the fruit. What do we do now? We take communion, right? And the communion is the body of Christ and the blood of Christ. Now, I think that's funny because in the garden, when we ate that fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, we let good and evil into our lives, right? Into us. Because whatever you consume, it becomes a part of you. And if you're watching bad things on TV, if you're listening to bad things on the radio, if you're thinking bad thoughts towards other people, it is something that is in you. It's something that you're consuming, and it is a part of you. And he's saying you need to get rid of that. And we take communion to remember Christ. Because Christ is the only one who has ever lived and loved the way that you're supposed to live and love. Like, he gave everything, right? Starting from the beginning, he gave up everything that you can hope for. He gave up heaven and being in the presence of the glory of God. He gave up all of that to humble himself and come here for your salvation. But he gave his body to be beaten so that you don't have to take that punishment. He gave his blood to be poured out on the cross with the life in the blood so that you could live. He gave his spirit so that you could have peace. Right? And he gave his life, right? His entire life, the way that he lived, so that you could live in abundance, so that you could see. Like, that is love, guys. Like, that's the way that we're supposed to love. You are supposed to love God, not just with your heart. Like, it is so good to love God with your heart and to have that feeling of love, right? But you are supposed to love God with all of your heart, all of your mind, and all of your strength. With everything that you've got. And the only time we've ever seen that is through Christ. Would you go take a beating for a friend? Maybe. For a family member? Maybe. For an enemy? Probably not. For somebody that hated you? Probably not. Would you die for any of them? Would you trade places? Probably not. Right? Would you would you give everything that you had in you? Right? Your whole spirit. Would you give that for somebody? Probably not. Would you live your entire life for others? Like, when it's not about you, would you live your whole life? Like, are you dedicated to what's here, to what you have, to building yourself and your life? Or would you give that? And would you let that be an example and give it to lift others up? Because that is what we see. And it all starts in your heart. It all starts in what you think. And it all starts in the direction and the things that you hold close. But that's the example. And I would encourage you guys, read through the rest of these and see what he's saying. See the new pedestal that he put it on, right? Not the new things that he's given, but the perfection that he showed. Like, this should blow your mind. It seemed so radically different with what he was saying and the way to live and the way to love and the way to hold these laws. It seemed so radically different that the people thought it was something new. They thought that it was something so totally new that it wasn't even the same thing. And that should show you how far off you are in the way that you live, in the way that you love, without God in your life. That's why we're thankful. And that's why he came, to show us the things that we didn't know. This is the truth. Is it any different? No. It's the same. It's exactly the same. It's just the way it was always intended to be done.